Finally, Friday night is here. Y'all know what that means. It means you are live with the World Tag Team Champions.
Tag Team Champions
of Interactive Sports Talk. And man, we have a great show for y'all tonight. Couple of big announcements coming up as well. So definitely want to make sure you stay tuned for all of that. But before we jump into that, man, I think we got to go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Steven Box, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, the one and the only
Cool McCain.
And together we are
the Play Callers.
Yes, sir. So cool. Man, we got a lot to talk about tonight. Got some NBA Summer League stuff going down. Some WNBA to talk about. A couple little NFL news and notes out there that kind of popped up as well. A little bit of NBA stuff too. So, whole lot to cover tonight, man. How you want to kick it off?
Let's go ahead and get into the NBA, man.
Yeah, man. So one thing, I don't know if
you
news saw
popped up.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You got it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and we might be about to say the exact same thing. Saw the news about Spider Mitchell and how the Knicks turned down a potential trade there. Is that what you were about to bring up?
Yeah, I did see something on that. Kind of interesting, man. I think what we need to realize about this, as well as other trades and different moves, is there's only so much value that a team that desires their player is willing to give for that player, right? We sit here and talk about how Kyrie wants to be traded, and he wants to go to the Lakers, or how Kevin Durant wants to go to certain teams. Donovan Mitchell, they're open to trading him, but only if they get a certain package. You got to understand, with all of these trade possibilities and trade scenarios, teams are not giving you two really good players, 4 or 5 picks, and taking on a big contract. That's counterproductive, right? Now, if you're saying like a couple of first round picks and maybe a player, okay, but they're wanting a lot for these guys. And these teams are being wise and saying, you know what, while this guy does make our team better, what you're asking us to mortgage for this player is not worth it.
Yeah.
So teams have to stop trying to do everyone like the Jazz did the Timberwolves. No one else is going to allow you to fleece them that way.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think these other teams have got to realize. We're not going out and giving you a couple of our better players and 4 or 5 future picks and pick swaps. And, I'm not saying they're asking all in this particular situation, but just across the board. You've got to fall more in line with realistic expectations for your players.
Yep.
While the guy that you might be getting is great, for instance, Kevin Durant. The reason I said last week that Kevin Durant's going to stay, and this is starting to be reported by other sources now, is because the package of expectations for what you want, no one's going to give you. Right. Brooklyn wants Kevin Durant, or they want a package of people that they feel is going to set them up for the future.
Right.
If you're a team out there that's looking for Kevin Durant, he's already said he wants to come and play with other superstars. So how is that really going to be possible if you've got to trade pieces to get him? For instance, Phoenix. Do you think a package around, at the time, their center who they've since re-signed, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Yeah. But Ayton, a package centered around Ayton, do you really think that package was going to get you Kevin Durant?
Nope.
No. Not unless you were going to do a multi-team trade and use other teams to throw other pieces in there. That's not going to be enough. But at the same time, if you're Phoenix, I'm not willing to gut my core to get Kevin Durant, or I'm in no better of a situation. So that's the problem you're running into. Teams are wanting so much based on the Jazz and the idiocy that they used in the intelligence that they used and the idiocy that the Timberwolves used in that trade. Yeah. That's that people think everybody's going to be able to Utah Jazz you. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So until the expectations fall back in line with what teams are willing to actually do, these guys are not getting traded. That's why a lot of these guys, I believe, are going to stay put, including Donovan Mitchell.
So just real quick, shout out to Big E joining us up here in the comments. Appreciate it.
Sleazy.
So yeah, man, the thing is, we talked about this a little bit last week, and you and I have had conversations about this offline too. I kind of like it. You know what I'm saying? Like the NBA had gotten to the point, man, where like these players were basically just running the league. And I don't have a problem with people getting all the money they can get and everything else. But when it starts getting to the point that guys are signing 5-6 year deals and then one out year 2, that's bad business. Like that's not a good look for the fans. I mean, we talk about how the teams aren't loyal and some of the things they do with the contracts, which is why I have no problem with players getting paid everything they can, demanding guaranteed money, all this other stuff. That's why I have a problem with that, because yes, these owners will sit here and screw you over if you give them the chance to. But these owners aren't signing people to 6-year deals and then shipping them out year 2. As a fan of a team, you sign a guy long term, you're excited about having that guy long term. And then when the next year he's like, oh, I'm out. Or if you look at Brooklyn right now, if I'm a Brooklyn fan, I'm mad because you got KD. He didn't really play the first year. Then you get him actually on the court. He misses half the season anyway. You finally, you get into the playoffs. Then you lose. And now he's talking about he wanted to leave. So really, what have you gotten? You've made this investment. And then that's the other thing. We talk about the trade pieces. If I'm Brooklyn, I'm like, do you see what I gave up to get this dude? You think I'm really going to give him away to you for nothing? No. So I kind of like the fact that some of these teams are starting to stand up a little bit and say, look, we're not necessarily going to force you to stay here, but if you're going to leave, we're going to make sure we're getting compensated very well for you leaving. I think that's good for fans. We can argue about whether it's good for the players or the teams themselves, but it's good for fans.
Yeah. Now, I just want to say real quick to give y'all a breakdown of the actual reported, because of course this hasn't been confirmed but reported.
Speculation
is that they wanted Quinton Grimes, Emmanuel Quickly, Obi Toppin, and 6 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell. Like I said, there isn't a player in the NBA, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, whoever, that I'm trading 6 first-round picks for in any situation.
Let alone players on top of it.
Players on top of that? No. But see, again, whose fault is this? And think about who's trying this. This is a Utah team that just fleeced Minnesota. So they're like, if we can fleece one team, maybe we can fleece somebody else. But everybody's not Minnesota. And that's what Utah is going to have to understand. You're not getting that haul. You shouldn't have got the haul that you got for Rudy Gobert. So obviously you're trying to get more for Donovan Mitchell. Yeah. If you're the Knicks, you're going to be better off continuing with what you're doing. Keeping Grimes Quickly and Topping all pieces that were very good for them this past year. Yep. And say, you know what? We got it. Don't even worry about it. That's a ridiculous thing to offer. And obviously you want to negotiate, but if this is how you're coming in, I mean, what can you really negotiate with someone that comes and wants 3 really good young players and 6 first-round picks for one player?
The Utah Jazz out here playing fantasy basketball, bro.
Man, it's crazy. And I mean, it's just not going to happen. Like, it's crazy, and people are not going to do it. And like you said, the thing with the NBA is we got to get back to the point where not necessarily saying like, oh, the players got a power, we're taking it back. But as an organization, I'm not going to let you fleece me like that.
Yeah.
You actually thought somebody was going to give you all that. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I can't be mad at them for asking, but, I hope they're not surprised by the answer.
Yeah. So there's also a report, while we're on the subject, that a lot of people are mad. A lot of NBA execs are mad at the trades for Rudy Gobert and DeJounte Murray, and they feel like these were reckless trades, again, that set a market that they're not willing to compete with. So you think about this. DeJounte Murray, we go back to that trade. Because we've talked sufficiently about the Rudy Gobert trade. We know how that went, and that was ridiculous. I don't think anybody would disagree. But for DeJounte Murray, the Spurs got 3 first-round picks, a pick swap in 2026, and Danilo Gallinari. Now, they ended up waiving Danilo Gallinari, but that's besides the point. For DeJounte Murray and Jock Landale, who probably is another, you know what I'm saying, that nobody cares about. Nobody's talking about him at all.
Yeah.
The thing is, when you're making these moves, you're basically saying DeJounte Murray is worth 3 first and a really solid player and a pick swap.
Yeah.
So if he's worth that, if Rudy Gobert is worth that ridiculous haul, then why wouldn't you go out if you're the same team who had Rudy Gobert and try to get 6 first-round picks?
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, you have to understand, other execs are not going to rock with that. Other execs are like, no. We're actually looking at the numbers and how much that would hurt our team. We're not going to do that for you or anybody else. There isn't a player in the league that's worth that. I'm sorry, Kevin Durant, you're not worth 3 solid players, 3 solid young players. Let me add that in there, and 6 first-round picks. Nobody is.
Yeah, you're right. I don't disagree. I will say that, we just saw this exact same thing play out a couple months ago in the NFL with Christian Kirk.
Nope.
All it takes is one team do something incredibly stupid, and now there's repercussions for everybody else. And in this case, we had 2 teams do something stupid. One clearly a little more stupid than the other, but still.
Yeah, one kind of set the stage for the other, though, right?
Yeah.
Another quick piece of information on the NBA, of course, the not Rudy Gobert, but Deandre Ayton finally got his contract, right? He 4 years, $133 million, way under the max contract he was attempting to get.
Yeah.
That's what he was offered by the Pacers, and it was quickly matched by Phoenix. They're going to be about $15 million over the cap with this signing, but it's smart and it makes sense. You go out and you see what other people are trying to pay you. You're coming to us talking about you want a max player. You're not a max player, buddy. We're not giving you a max deal. You go out, you get somebody, you find out what they'll pay you, we'll match it.
Yeah.
And that's how you should treat a player like DeAndre Ayton, because honestly, 4 years, $133 million, you're paying him based on what you expect him to do in the future, not what he's done so far.
Yeah.
Because while Ayton hasn't been a horrible player, he hasn't been a player that's earned 4 years, $133 million.
Yeah, you're technically
truthfully
overpaying
honest.
him now. Yeah, you're overpaying him now, but at least that's what the market told you he's. So Billy V says, I have a feeling Kirk will be solid. Look, he might be solid, but he ain't gonna be 18 mil solid.
Yeah, that's the thing for me, Billy V. I think putting him in that situation, he's gonna be good at Jacksonville, but you're paying him number 1 receiver money, and he's done nothing to earn that money. Yeah. That's the thing for me. And I understand free agency, you sometimes you overpay players to get them to certain teams. Jacksonville's not been a very good team for a while. So somebody's saying, if I'm going there, I need to be compensated a little bit more. I get the $18 million a year for Christian Kirk. That kind of destroyed the market for teams and started to build a market for wide receivers, because of Christian Kirk is worth 18. Now you think about the number of receivers now, they could be like, bro, if he's getting 18, I should be getting 25 easy.
Yeah, because truthfully, Christian Kirk was like a 13 mil a year receiver. And that was projecting a little bit of upside.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a knock on him. It's just that he hasn't proven anything that he deserved to be in that pay range to me at this point. Not that he couldn't, but he hadn't at this point. Now, if he comes out and balls out and becomes a great number 1 receiver, then it ends up being a great deal. But based on previous production, it'll be interesting to see if he can be the number 1. And that's essentially what you're paying him for with that $18 million before it exploded the market. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's where it goes. So, he says he doesn't feel he had the opportunity to be the one. Well, there's a reason he didn't have the opportunity to be the one. Because I'm going to remind you that it's not just a matter of DeAndre Hopkins. Because he was on the team before DeAndre Hopkins and he still wasn't the one.
Yeah, I think there's a fair point, kinda, in what you're saying, Billy V. I guess my counterpoint to you is simply this: even when DeAndre Hopkins was hurt, even with the aging Larry Fitzgerald, they never looked at him and said, "Christian Kirk, we're giving you number one reps. We're giving you number one targets." That to me is a little telling. Also, he could go out there and ball out, right? He could. This 18 million could look great in 2 years. But again, market. When you go and you do something like that, you now negatively affect every other team. I've got a young receiver coming up in 3 years that's going to want to be paid 3 years after this season because he's got 4 years left. He was rookie last year, right? And salaries going up the way they are, even with the salary cap moving up, if all that money gets re-eaten up by wide receivers getting paid so much more money, it's not really going to help teams be able to really get better.
Yeah,
that's the thing, because there is a cap, and this is not basketball where you can go over the cap. This is football.
Right.
It's a hard cap. I mean, you can roll money over from year to year, so you can have certain money more some years or whatever, but it's a hard cap. Mm-hmm. So you have to understand with football, you have a finite amount of resources. So when you're making these decisions, when you're deciding who you're going to pay, what you're going to pay, and how the effect is going to affect you and other teams long term, you have to kind of keep that in account. And not that you're looking out for other teams, because I'm not expecting anyone to do that. But your own players are going to come up for contracts and be like, "Hey, bro, you pay him such and such. I'm better than him. I've outperformed him, so I want more money." You're going to have that on your own team as well. That's what you started. So we'll see how far it actually goes. But I mean, you have to be conscious of the business end of the contracts that you offer and give people. And that's, to me, like where the Christian Kirk contract went off the rails.
Yeah. And Billy, to your point here, I mean, think about it. D-Hop missed time, which D-Hop misses time every year. AJ Green came on strong at the beginning of the year, but he kind of fell off. And then you're talking about the rookie they drafted, but if you're going out and getting paid $18 million a year, you should have been able to outperform a rookie. That shouldn't even be in the conversation. So the fact that, as Cole said, that they actually didn't get his dude number one reps, even when D-Hop and AJ Green weren't there, to me, that's very telling.
Yep.
So we'll see. I guess I know who you'll be drafting in our fantasy football draft this year.
Hey, it might turn out to be a great pickup.
It might be. I
wouldn't pay $18 million a year for it, but it might turn out.
Right.
That's just me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So real quick, man, before we move into our next topic, man, I did want to take a pause and share with everyone that we have some great news to share with y'all. Our new sponsor here at the Play Color Sports Talk Show is EV Mux. So for those of y'all that don't know, EV Mux is a live streaming platform. And for all of y'all who always are sending us questions going, man, how do y'all get y'all show to look the way it look? Like, how you get them setups? EV Mux. This is what they pro scenes are able to do. So that's how we get this nice look for this. If you want to check it out, I do have an affiliate link down in the description of the video. So you can go down there, check it out, go to that. Full disclosure, if you click on it, if you end up doing a pay plan, we get a little small commission. It's not going to affect your pricing any, but it's a good way to show a little love to your boys and help us pay some bills around here. So,
yes, sir.
I'm going to shout out our new sponsor out. So,
yes, sir. And that's the first of many.
First of many. Yes, sir. Since we're talking about, people getting paid, I figure, we talk about, us getting paid over here too,
Absolutely.
So, yeah, man, my thing is, when I'm looking at the NBA landscape, right, I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift also, not just in people kind of getting tired of players forcing their way out and all that kind of stuff, but we know that these leagues tend to be copycat leagues, right? So you got a team like Golden State that primarily built through the draft, and then they traded for a couple of pieces. right? And so that's what people now want to try to copy because they've seen that the super team in Brooklyn didn't get it done. They saw the super team in LA didn't get it done outside of the bubble season, right? But when they tried to retool the next year, they couldn't get it done. So teams now are saying, oh, let me be like Golden State. Well, you can't be like Golden State if you trade 6 draft picks away. So
Right.
that's why I think also we're seeing some of this because teams now are looking at the way to build a team and they're going to be a little bit more patient with that process, but they know that means they have to protect those future assets.
Correct.
Yeah. Now you'll still see
it
teams
makes
like the
perfect
Lakers.
sense.
Look, you'll still see teams like the Lakers trade away their first picks because that's just what they do. Only thing
you always have some teams. Yeah, you'll have some teams that'll do that no matter what. But I think you make a fair point in that that's something that I feel like overall the league is getting a little bit away from because, like you said, what's the point in giving up everything if it's not going to be something that's going to help us in the short term?
Yeah.
Why am I giving up everything I have for one player? Right.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And especially unless that player is actually going to put you over the top now.
Right.
There's no point. There's no point. I mean, no one is trading all those pieces and all that future stuff away to make the playoffs.
They shouldn't if they do.
Yeah. So, man, speaking of the future of the NBA, Summer League is kind of a hot topic right now. And for those who maybe don't watch Summer League, it's actually a lot of fun to watch. It's a little bit different from the NBA regular games because it's really, to me, it's more like watching street ball, right? It's more like watching pickup games. Guys aren't out there necessarily playing a lot of defense and, things like that. People are out there just trying to basically get theirs. But I do think that you can see some of the growth in guys. You can see some little sneaks of guys actually getting better. And it's really cool, I think, when you can see guys that have been in the league, maybe this is like their second season they're going into, and you get to see them actually go out there and perform well in the Summer League. So I think that's kind of fun to watch. And it's a good place to see some of the upcoming young talent. Unlike the NFL preseason, which, I still contend is not real football.
Yeah, I mean, what the difference between what the NBA does with the summer leagues is that you're actually having guys that are attempting to get in the league that may have been around a couple of years that are attempting to get in and may have played in the G League and the NBA, trying to show that, hey, I've developed, I've gotten better, give me a shot. And you also have guys that it's their first opportunity. Rookies, maybe players that played in the G League last year, guys fighting to try to get roster spots, actually playing against each other. So the talent level you're seeing for the most part is on par with each other. So you're seeing a guy like Paolo Banchero. He only played a couple of games because they're not going to play him anymore. Chet Holmgren, top 2 picks, playing really well. Holmgren up and down, but overall, I would say, there's going to be games. He physically is a small guy right now, like frame-wise. He's tall, but he's a small guy. So it's going to take him some time to muscle, get a little heftier to be able to handle some of these more powerful bigs in the NBA. But against guys that are around his talent level, he's had some really good games and some more challenging games. I think you expect that. You've had some guys that really had great games or great summer leagues, like Moses Moody. The California Classic, he didn't do that much, like 11 points a game. But he's been kind of snapping in the Vegas League, right?
Yeah, right.
He's just playing really well. He's had games like 21-4, 34-5, 34 points, 5 rebounds. So he's showing that he has the ability at this level. After his rookie season, he's back here working on his game. Some of his teammates, like James Wiseman were there as well, Jonathan Kuminga. They haven't fared as well statistically, but I think a lot of minutes for guys who are going to be asked to do more for the Warriors this year with some of the guys that they've lost to other teams in free agency. Yep. So it's good to see that Moody's playing really well and the other guys are at least getting the reps, and they're not playing horrible. They're just not, playing as well as he has. Cam Thomas from the Brooklyn Nets. He's another guy that's went off in the summer league. He was the co-MVP last year. He's coming back. He's averaged 29 points per game so far in the summer league, and he's just balling.
Yeah.
So when you have guys that are playing that well, what can you really say? You go out there, you dominated at this level, you come to the next level, you want to get some playing time.
Yeah.
Another guy that's played really well, and I'll just give them all real quick, and then if you want to touch base on any of them, feel free. Yeah. Is Quinton Grimes from the New York Knicks. Mm-hmm. 25th pick last year.
Yeah.
He's dropped 24 in the last few games. Good mid-range shot. He's made some threes. He's played well. We talked about Chet Holmgren a few minutes ago. One game he had 23, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. Another game, 11 points, like 3 assists, couple blocks. So like I said, a little up and down, but he's never looked like he's just outmatched where he doesn't belong. There's been some games where he's more physically outmatched because of the bulk and, the size, the meat, so to speak, of the guys he's going against with him having a smaller frame. But he's held his own even in those games where it's been a little bit more physically challenging for him.
Yeah.
And then you have Keegan Murray, the 4th overall pick. He's been balling too. He's been balling.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's just playing well. In the Cali Classic, he averaged 19.7 per game. He's already had games of 23 and 20 in the summer league. Another guy. He needs that time. He needs the reps. This is the perfect place to get it against guys who have, quote unquote, at least like G League, fringe NBA talent. You're going to have some guys that are going out here in these games and they're going to look like they don't belong. And you've seen it. I've seen guys miss like horrible layups, I've seen guys have good plays and then shrieking moments. Like one guy I really hope gets on the team, but his play hasn't really convinced me, and that's Sharif ONeill. We all got to admit, we watch the checks to see what this guy's going to do.
Yeah.
Sharif doesn't start, so that's one thing that kind of is a little bit of a red flag. You're in the summer league and you're not starting.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's played well in spurts, just not consistently.
Yeah.
And you have to be consistent for anything to work. So I feel like Sharif's just got to be better. Scottie Pippen's son is playing pretty well. There's a lot of other guys that are playing well, but these guys I'm talking about are guys that kind of have really stood out with the consistency of their summer league performances. So just wanted to kind of talk about them real quick, man. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, I think you hit on a lot of people. There's actually a couple other names that stood out to me too. One, Cam Thomas. Still can't hit a 3-pointer to save his life. But towards the end of the season, he was, starting to get a lot of shots for Brooklyn, and it's nice to see him carry that over. It showed even a little bit more development. So he still needs to work on that long game to really round his game out well. But it is nice to kind of see him do that. You talked about guys getting in reps. Josh Giddey is another name that comes up. And it's been nice for him to go out there. He's not necessarily putting up a ton of points. I think he's averaging like 13 points a game, but he is averaging like 8 assists a game. And he's getting that time with Holmgren out there on the court. They're getting those reps in. So that's going to be huge for Oklahoma City to get those 2 young guys out there getting those reps together. So, a couple of those names in addition to some of the names you mentioned. One thing I will add with Benchiro, I think that Orlando was really smart to say, hey, you're not going to go out here and develop everything you need to develop in summer league. Let's go out there, want to have you play a little bit, just get the experience of it. And then we're going to pull you back. Like, we're not going to let you go out there and get hurt and have things go sideways. So really smart move, in my opinion, on their part. They saw what they need to see. They pulled them out.
Can't really argue with that.
Yeah. Also, somebody I know you talked about come the draft and has looked pretty good too, Jabari Walker.
Yeah.
Another name which I think a lot of people kind of starting to see like what he's out there doing, and they're like, oh, wait, this dude got drafted where? How? Feel that far? Why? Which was, I know, a question you asked yourself during the draft.
Yeah.
You're like, this dude's got
Sometimes
all
it's
this
just fit.
experience, all these great teachers. They fell that far.
Yeah. Well, it happens sometimes just because, the value of the experience, right? Sometimes you don't value how a person got to where they're at.
Looks like his internet ran out there for a second. Here it comes right back. Now we can't hear you though. Can't hear you, bro. So I'm not sure what's going on with his audio, but while he gets that figured out, shout out to Snowman in the morning with Cole Johnson. Appreciate you hopping in. Also, Big Shot Rob join us over here in the comments. So appreciate you joining us too, Rob. So let us know what are y'all's thoughts on Summer League. Anybody that stood out to you? Anybody that's really impressed you so far? Maybe anybody we didn't cover. Anybody that you thought was a really big disappointment, let us know those in the comments, and maybe we'll go back and kind of touch base on some of those too. Let's see. So Billy says, "What are your thoughts on Keegan Murray? I thought he was the best player coming out of this draft." Did we get you back on audio, man? Nope. I don't know what's going on. We'll get him back in a minute.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, sir.
All right, perfect.
So I don't know if you see Billy V's question here. Want to know our thoughts on Keegan Murray. It says he thought he was the best player coming out of the draft.
So I think a big thing that we have to realize about players, it's fit for a team, right? What could be great for one team can be something that another team already feels like they have a better version of. Keegan Murray is definitely a guy that was in the mix to be the top pick, the guy that was talked about a lot.
Yeah.
He plays well. I think name recognition.
Don't know what's going on with who's internet tonight, but there you go. He got that out of town internet. That explains it. He'll be back on in a second. Maybe. So he must be at the link, Rob. Nah, I don't think he had the link. Yeah, man. My thing when it comes to Keegan Murray is I think he's actually looked really good. Obviously, still really raw. So it's going to be interesting to see how he develops. But as of right now, yeah, I'm seeing a lot of potential there. It's going to be very, very interesting to see how he grows. Let's see if we can get All right, I'm just gonna switch over to the solo view until we can get him back on. Let's see. Oh, here he goes.
Aren't working quite as harmoniously as they do when I'm at the crib.
Now you back muted again, bro.
I
don't know, Rob. He might be at the link, man. He might be at the link. We might have to start reinvestigating that. I don't know.
Can you hear me now?
Eagles quality internet over here, man.
Can you hear me now?
Can't hear you, bro. Y'all know we go through this like every week, man. I'm gonna wait to just see if he has anything else he wants to add on Summer League here. If not, then we're gonna move on to some of these other topics. But while we're getting him back up, so I'm gonna switch gears a little bit because I'm gonna lead the WNBA talk for him because I know he was talking a little WNBA All Star game. But NFL, man, we should be hearing probably in the next week or so some information on the Deshaun Watson case.
Hello?
The deadline has passed for them to get all the paperwork and everything submitted to the arbitrator. So now it's in the arbitrator's hands. Now we're just going to wait and see what happens with that. So we're going to get some resolution to that here very soon. I did see today that the Houston Texans actually settled with 30 different women. And of course, then they put out a statement saying that, they're not admitting to any wrongdoing, that they're only settling this to, take a stand against domestic violence. So y'all can take that for whatever you want. So you can believe that or not believe that, but that is what is going on. So I'm gonna go ahead and just throw it out there into the chat. Y'all let us know, how many games do you think Deshaun Watson gonna get? Go ahead and get your bets in now. How many games do you think? Remember, the rumor was the NFL was pushing to get a minimum 1-year suspension. So do you think that's realistic? Do you think it's going to be less than that? What do you think? How many games is Deshaun Watson going to get this year? Rob says 8 games for Deshaun Watson. What do you think, Cool?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, man.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
4 to 6, man. I've said this all along. 4 to 6.
Okay.
That's been my thing. I've been telling y'all this the entire time. The reason is they don't have enough actual evidence to do what the NBA wants. I mean, the NFL wants to do. The NFL wants to do it a year, and he's indefinitely suspended with at least a year. Then they try to drop it down to indefinitely, but he could reapply for 12 games. They don't have evidence. They have basically accusations. They can prove that he had some interactions with these women, but it's basically the 5 women that they interviewed, one of which sons came out and said, my mom said, keep my mouth closed and she'll give me some of that money.
Yeah.
He's already got money, so now he don't care. I don't know. But the thing is, you're going to get suspended because you made the NFL look bad. Conduct detrimental to the league.
Yeah.
You can't not suspend Ben Roethlisberger for more than that for his situation and then turn around and suspend Deshaun Watson for a year. Yeah. That's not consistent. You could try to make the argument, well, he was accused by more people and he settled. Well, the Houston Texans just settled. So if that's the case, the Houston Texans, who, by the way, their statement is a complete and utter lie. They knew about it before the day that they tried to say they did. That's a complete lie. Right. Everyone knows it. Stop playing, Houston. You just want to keep your hands clean. At the end of the day, you knew your guy was giving this dude the letters to give to the women. So if that's the case, why would they do that? We know something happened. Stop playing. You knew. You just waited until he said he wanted to leave to allow these things to come out about him, but you didn't realize it was going to get bad, and you was going to have to drop some money too. For that number down 30, they had to pay out 30 women. I wonder why that happened.
Now we'll say this: the Houston Texans, basically in their statement, want us to believe that they basically just did this out of the goodness of their heart. That they knew nothing. They're not guilty of anything at all. They just did this completely out of the goodness of their hearts because they strongly believe against domestic violence. So Houston, I have a proposal for you. We also are against domestic violence. And we completely agree with you firing B.O.B. So why don't you go ahead and give us some money and sponsor our show next week? Just throw the offer out on the table for you guys. Since y'all are just throwing money around for people for good deeds and support. We're happy to help spread the word. Anybody want to guess if that check's gonna come in the mail?
We didn't throw. Hey man, we weren't we didn't accuse a player from the team of sexual wrongdoing.
Hey,
you have to do that to get that check, sir.
Hey, I'm more than willing to accuse Bob of conduct detrimental to my health or something like that, man. They do cause you mental trauma by treating DeAndre Hopkins to my division for next to nothing.
Well, I'm just saying, man, for me, I'm not saying that he did or didn't do what he's accused of.
Yeah. Yeah. And can't hear you, bro. Rob said to fix your internet at the link, bro. Rob, man, help your boy out, man. Get his internet back right. So, yeah, so I think what he was saying there was, the thing is, we don't really know if Deshaun Watson is guilty or not, right? And I know some people are going to want to tie this in and be like, oh, the Texans settled these lawsuits, so that must mean that they know something. He must be guilty or whatever. This was the Texans. Like, this was them covering their own self. They didn't want whatever they did or didn't do to get drug in. Because even if Deshaun Watson didn't do anything wrong, if you're the Texans and you were actually having people sign NDAs and you were setting up hotel rooms for these massages to happen, then you're basically saying if any of this ends up getting proven at any point to be true, then you are 100% a part of that process. And the Texans are like, we're going to go ahead and safeguard ourselves. We're just going to pay the money now. And then that way we don't get drug into it later. That's basically what the Houston Texans are trying to do. And that's why they made sure that they had it to where not just the people that are currently suing them or asking for money, but they said that no one in the future can ask for money. So that was part of their settlement agreement. So, we'll see what happens with that situation. I'm hearing mostly rumors that probably the next 10 days is when we're going to actually hear something. So we'll see. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that. I was hoping Cool is going to get back on here, man, because I wanted to get his thoughts on this whole Lamar Jackson thing with his contract dispute right now. So I'm curious, what do y'all think? Does Lamar not get enough love? I mean, personally, I watched him when he was at Louisville. I saw him against, Florida State every single year. I know what the dude is capable of on the field. A lot of people say, oh, he can't throw, he's not accurate, all this other stuff. Well, I gotta tell you, when he was in college, he threw some pretty accurate passes. And some of them were pretty deep balls. So I don't think that Lamar Jackson is the problem. I think Greg Roman is the problem. I think he holds him back. And I think that Lamar Jackson is getting disrespected by the media. And I think he deserves to get paid the way he wants to get paid. The man was the MVP of the league one year. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you heard what I was saying. I was just curious what your thoughts were on the way that some of the media opinions on Lamar Jackson.
Very disrespectful.
Yeah.
Very disrespectful. So also a big problem I have is him not being considered a top 10 quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah. And that was I didn't come out and say it, but that's what I was referring to was that conversation.
So my thing is, I'm not going to name anybody, because I'm not going to be that guy. But I'm going to say there are not 9 quarterbacks in the NFL that are better than Lamar Jackson. I mean, there's not 9 other quarterbacks that are better than Lamar Jackson in the NFL. Does he not have the same throwing ability as some of the other dudes? I can rock with you on that. I can actually agree with that. Like I'm not one to feel how Lamar Jackson is a great thrower. I mean, he can make throws.
Yeah.
As my coach was saying, he made throws in college against me as a Miami fan as well. But there is a level of development that I don't feel that he's getting. Part of that is definitely on him, right? But I think when you get to the point where you're focusing on your legs so much and you're needing to only make certain plays, kind of like you said, based on the system that you're being shown to run, it happens.
Yeah.
I think you just have to look at it and say he's a former MVP. So when you're a former NFL MVP, to me, that makes you a little bit better than just another guy that may be on the come up. He played on a team last year that was bereft with injuries. They had to go and grab dudes that weren't even on rosters or practice squad dudes to be their running backs last year. So you didn't have a traditional run game. Injuries just plagued the defense, so you weren't able to get a lot of help. So the team was put in situations where they had to throw a lot more than they wanted to.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can't count 1 year and try to knock a guy that was an MVP a couple of years ago out of the top 10.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's essentially something that was voted on by, league insiders in the league. So the league is basically saying we don't feel you're a top 10 quarterback. And like I said, there's some guys that they put over him that's a joke.
Yeah.
So the thing is, what I think is funny is you're giving this guy an opportunity to say, oh man, I've been here this whole time, and now I'm being treated like I'm not even a top 10 quarterback anymore. Right? For me, that's motivation. If I'm a dude like Lamar Jackson, it's motivation. Lamar Jackson started to come out and say things. We hadn't seen him say too much before, but he's starting to come out and, make some comments. I love it. I think it shows the passion. It shows that, while he's a guy that, he's a nice guy and, whatever, he also is like, hold up, bro. Y'all ain't just going to sit around here and disrespect me like I'm not nice. Like, I may not be the best quarterback in the league. That's fine. But to say that there's 10 other quarterbacks better than him?
Yeah.
Nah.
I mean, because I'm pretty sure there's not 10 other quarterbacks that's won the MVP show.
There's definitely not. So it's funny how we have guys that, like I said, not naming any names, guys that haven't won MVPs, guys that had like maybe one great year, guys that start off strong but fall off before the season ends every year, and you're putting them above Lamar Jackson. All I'm going to say is you're giving a guy that really didn't need more motivation, but you're giving him more motivation, and it normally works out very good for that individual. So kudos to all you guys for saying that. Now he knows how people feel about him. So now he's got a chance to come out with a chip on his shoulder after having a bad year last year as well. So just something else to add to that motivation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's what it comes down to, man. Like, you really want your quarterback, especially, right, to have that kind of confidence to say, okay, that's how y'all want to come to me. I got you, and just put in that extra work and go out there and work that much harder. So, it's one of those things, man, where like you hope he goes out there and he uses it in a positive manner and he uses it to drive himself. And I'm sure he will.
Yeah, he will. Just know, one good season, you shouldn't be over a guy that's an MVP that's had multiple playoff seasons,
Yo. By the way, I didn't get a chance to look at everybody's deals, but, we did actually have the deadline today for teams to sign franchise tag players to a long-term deal. So couple of notable names on there. Left tackle Orlando Brown did not come to an agreement with the Chiefs. Rob, sorry, your tight end Dalton Schultz did not come to a long-term deal with your Cowboys, so he will have to play under the franchise tag this year. But one that's interesting is Jesse Bates, the Bengals safety. He said he's not playing under no franchise tag. He said he prepared to hold out. And they did not come to an agreement on a long-term deal.
Jesse Bates, I would not be upset if you let your team know that you would like a change of scenery. There's room on the Eagles for you.
And if you tune in next Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. to the Eagles Elite podcast, I'm sure my co-host will be more than happy to let you know all the reasons he thinks you should consider such a move.
Absolutely. Just want to throw it out there since we were talking about Jesse Bates. Just want to let him know.
Just let him know. So, real quick, man, because I want to leave a little time for you to talk WNBA All-Star game as well, or a weekend, excuse me. But wanted to touch real quickly on conversation we had last week about college realignment. A couple of things that have happened this week after our conversation. So, number one is the rumors are that the Big 12 is not going to sit still. And they're actually trying to get to like 18 to 20 teams. They're actually trying to go out and be the biggest conference. So taking a little bit different approach because they're obviously going to go out and try to get some the Pac-12 teams as well as some teams from some of the lower conferences that are not Power 5 right now. And they're going to try to bring them up and just basically form their own super conference. The other thing I think that's worth noting in conversation, and this actually came from, I think it was a chancellor at North Carolina, was they made a comment, and they weren't really alluding to anything particular, but they made this comment about, look, ESPN they understand the importance of having a strong ACC, right? So maybe there's some TV reworkings that could go on there. And I actually stopped and thought about it, and I said, it makes a lot of sense because we've been looking at this as a negative that the ACC signed the Scottie Pippen deal, right? Where they basically getting paid nothing into 2036. But the reality is that also means ESPN is stuck with that contract into 2036. So ESPN can either look at it and say, well, we're going to keep paying you what we're paying you, but we know that every year the rating is going to go down and down as you fall further and further behind in recruiting and your teams can't keep up, right? So that contract is going to be worth less to you because nobody's watching. And we all know if nobody's watching, advertisers aren't paying you good money. And that's how ESPN makes their money. So ESPN has a vested interest in making sure that the ACC is actually competitive.
Exactly.
So, am I, if I'm the ACC, I'm definitely working every angle I can to try to, get that money gap to not be so big. I don't think you're going to negotiate to get as much as the Big Ten and the SEC, but you can definitely make that gap a lot smaller. So just, point that out, a little something for people to think about.
Well, like I alluded to last week, you have that deal, definitely a Pippen deal, but the difference is it's also protection for the ACC. So if Clemson gets ticked off and says, you know what, man, screw this, man. I'm tired of this conference not being better. I'm out. You can't take your rights until 2036. So if you can't take your rights, you're not leaving. So while it did affect the money, I think the ACC did have some foresight in seeing this coming and saying, let's lock it down now. Now, the thing is, the whole thing with the Pac-12, I'm not going to go back into the whole thing. We went over it last week, but that's a way. You revamp the ACC network into the Pac-12 ACC or whatever you want to call it. Network, transcontinental network, whatever you want to call it. East-West network, whatever, just whatever you want to call it. And then you say simply, we're going to use this. This is going to be a way that we're going to get ourselves more money while continuing to keep our teams locked in until 2036. Now, also keep in mind, that doesn't mean that the ACC can't go out and get some teams. There was a specific coach that said, hey, I would like to get my team in the ACC, in the next few years. Not going to be the only one. That's the thing.
Basketball, but yeah.
It was actually for football. It was the football coach that said it. It was for football. The thing is, if you're not in a Power 5 conference, you want to be in a Power 5 conference. right? If that's the ACC, that's the Big 12, Pac-12, the SEC. If you can get your foot in and start to get that, because truthfully, more eyes are on the ACC than a non-Power 5 conference. That's the truth. Yeah. If you want to argue that the ACC may be the 5th ranked one, I would say it's always been the Pac-12, but that's neither here nor there. But either way, you're still getting that national spotlight.
Yeah.
So I think the ACC is going to do kind of what the Big 12 was talking about. Instead of poaching from other Power 5 conferences, let's go look at some of these guys that are in the traditional ACC area, and let's see if we can poach some of them from some of these smaller conferences that may have outplayed where they're at. A perfect school for the ACC to go after, and I'm going to go ahead and throw this out, is Appalachian State. They're not in the Power 5 conference, but you know them primarily for football and how they've moved themselves up to the FBS level. Yeah. So why not go take a team like that, come on over to the ACC? Your weakness is going to be basketball, but we have enough good schools in basketball where it's not going to matter. But you're going to at least bring a level of relevancy to college football.
Yeah.
There's others out there. But that's my point, is there are places to go. And as you just mentioned, the ESPN doesn't want to have a dying contract.
Yeah.
So what better way than to say, okay, if you want to bring in other teams, we'll rework things. They'll have to sign the same type of agreement, but we'll rework the numbers for you. If you're bringing in 4 more teams, say, just throw a number out there, we can rework the numbers for you based on 4 more teams that people want to watch.
Yeah.
Then you do the deal with the Pac-12 on top of that. I mean, you're golden. You're putting yourself in a position where you have a lot of teams tied up for a long time, and you're just waiting 12 more years. 14 more years. And then you're making things happen. I say 12 years because once you get about a year or 2 out, actually, that's when teams normally start saying if they're going somewhere, making that known. Yeah. So around 2034 will be where you would start getting, if you're not where the teams want to be, where you start having teams say, well, I'm going to go here when this is over. I'm going to go here in 2 years. But right now, it's so far away, you wouldn't even want to make that agreement, and no conference would want to make that agreement with them. So the ACC was smart in that right. But again, in order probably to do something that long term, you had to give up some of the financials. But again, you bring in more teams, that's got to at least up the financials for it over that frame of time. So that's probably something the ACC is at least looking into, as well as the Pac-12, I'm sure, is looking into possibly bringing in some more teams now that they've lost some members as well. So I don't think the other conferences are going to die the Power 5 as much. You might have to form the alliance between the Pac-12 and the ACC for them both to succeed to the point money-wise where some of the other conferences are at. But that's doable. It's something that at least they've been working on, and there's other options as well to help the ACC. So I don't think the ACC is as dead as some people have felt that they were when this started. But we will see.
Yeah, they definitely got to make some moves. Otherwise, they will be. But they're not as completely out of options as people think. But they got to do some stuff. They can't just sit still.
Well, you definitely don't want to sit still in this new environment. That would be a high level of asininity.
So we'll see what happens, man. So before we get ready to wrap this thing up, man, why don't you go ahead and give us a breakdown on what happened for the WNBA All-Star Weekend?
We kind of actually talked about that last week.
Well, I thought you were going to do like a little recap for the week. That's what you told me, earlier this week. You sent me the topics, sir.
Well, it wasn't actually the All-Star game, just kind of the WNBA standings.
Okay.
Was actually what I was, yeah.
Well, I misinterpreted my bad. So,
it's good. So we're going to hit up, the WNBA standings for the East and for the West. We'll start with the East. So in the East, the best team right now, actually the best team in the league is the Chicago Sky. They're your reigning and defending champs for the WNBA. They've been playing very well. Last 10 games, they're 8-2. They won 3 in a row. Overall, they're 18-6. What's important is that they have a marketable star in Candace Parker, who's been appearing on basketball games, also does commentating for the NBA on TNT on some nights during the season. So she's a face that people know, relatable. She's a little long in the tooth for the WNBA, but she is someone that, can still play at a high level. She's surrounded by a lot of other quality players, and it's no surprise that that's the best team in the East.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of them staying there. It's just a matter of them, continuing to excel and be the best that they can and win games that they're supposed to win against teams they should beat. Behind them in the East is the Connecticut Sun. They're 15-8, 2.5 games back. Connecticut was the best team in the league earlier in the season. Had a little difficulty, but they've been 5-5 in their last 10 games. They've only won their last game, so they're kind of at that point. I think the Sky were going to ascend, but that doesn't mean the Suns are not a good team, just that sometimes the other team is just a little bit better. Star players abound in the WNBA, but because a lot of people may not be familiar with the Connecticut Sun, I'm not going to try to break down the stars. More so what I'm doing here is just, hey, this is what's going on in the WNBA. We try to make it quick, but it gives you an idea. So for those of you who want to watch, what teams to watch and what you can expect. Third in the East is the Washington Mystics at 15-11. They're 5-5 in their last 10 games as well. They're on a 1-game losing streak. They're still 15-11, so they've lost more games, but they've won the same amount of games as the Connecticut Sun. With the WNBA season, you'll see a lot of times where some teams may have more back-to-backs or may lump some games together. So you'll see where someone may have played 3-4 more games than another team. So that's why you kind of get some of this. This team has 3 more games. They're all losses than the Suns. In fourth place, is still in the playoffs, is the Atlanta Dream at 10-13. They're 3-7 in their last 10 games, and they lost 2 in a row. Atlanta's a team. They have the consensus probably rookie of the year already, Ryan Howard. A lot of other pieces when they're playing well. There's times where they're not. They have a lot of different people that can contribute, as do all the other teams. But I think they just are in a year where they're going to be kind of on that bottom half of the conference, but at the same time still be good enough to have a playoff spot and possibly win something because of the nature of the best 2 out of 3 in the WNBA first round of the playoffs this coming season. After them in 5th place in the East, we have the Liberty, 9-15, 4-6 in their last 10. They've lost 3 in a row. The Liberty are a team that is rebuilding to an extent. They have some quality players, but you're still in that rebuilding mode. That's why you're kind of low down there. And in the 6, you have the Fever at 5-20, 2-8 in their last 10. They've lost 7 in a row. So you kind of can see the disparity when you get from about 5th to 6th, but really at 4th, you kind of see them starting to break away. It's just a matter of teams being able to continue through the second half of the WNBA season, getting where they need to be. On the West, we have the Las Vegas Aces. Anybody who watches WNBA or pays attention to the news at all knows Becky Hammond's team has been one of the better teams. They're the second best team in the WNBA at 17-7. They're 5-5 in their last 10. They've won 2 in a row. Behind them, we have the Seattle Storm, 16-8. Actually, the third best team in the WNBA, 7-3 in their last 10. They've won 3 in a row. Another team. They have Lauren Jackson. They have a lot of really quality individuals. They can play with anybody. They're in the West, which is a little bit tougher, but the way the schedule plays out, you play the East and the West pretty much similar amount of games. So it's something that, can help both ways. Dallas Wings, a lot of young talent. They're 11-13, 5-5. On the last 10, they lost 1. Behind them, the Phoenix Mercury, a team that there's a lot of talk about. You have Diana Taurasi. A lot of people think she's the greatest WNBA player of all time. I'm not going to take the time to talk about that right now. It's a different conversation for a different day. They also have several other really quality individuals. Problem is they're, I think, racked by this whole Brittany Griner situation. It's staying in the news. I think it's affecting their chemistry. It's affecting their play, and she's definitely not there to be that defensive anchor in the middle for them. So I think that's affecting them while they're 11-15 and sitting in 4th in the West. 5th, we have the LA Sparks, which is, I'm surprised that they're that low. They're 10-14, 5-5 in their last 10. They've lost 3 in a row. And then behind them, we had the Minnesota Lynx, They're 9-16, 6-4 in their last 10, and they've lost one. Basically, what I'm gonna be doing here, guys, we just take 5-10 minutes, not a lot of time, but I want to try to get people to kind of understand what's happening with the WNBA, talking about the teams, maybe talk about different players, different weeks. Just want to bring a little awareness. It's something that I feel if people know a little bit about it, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. It's another basketball that you can see that's going to be a higher level than Summer League. Not trying to say it's on the level of NBA, but it's going to be a higher level of play in the Summer League. Give it a shout. They're on ESPN a lot on the weekends. There's a lot of games on during the week as well. If you have NBA TV, they play the games there. I know some of them on Amazon Prime as well. If you get a chance, man, just check them out and see what you think. You may find a team that you like. You may see it's something that you want to get into. If you do, and it's not your thing, man, that's cool. It's not for everybody. Nothing is.
And there y'all have it. That's your WNBA breakdown for the week. So I know you definitely want to bring a little bit more attention to that each week, man.
Yes, sir.
We're gonna talk a little bit about just bring some awareness. You know what I'm saying? Like that way people can kind of tune in a little bit, catch what's kind of going on, and then hopefully we actually start tuning in and checking out some of the games as well.
Absolutely. We talk about wanting to help the game grow, help the game improve. If you don't talk about it, it won't. If people don't have awareness, there's no possible way. So why not us?
Why not us? I mean, we are, after all, the reigning and defending, undisputed tag team champions of Interactive Sports Talk. So who else is gonna do it?
I just want to add another tag team champions real quick.
Oh yeah, always. You never say tag team champions enough times, sir.
This is so very true. Now, we don't talk about professional wrestling too much on our show. We got a couple of extra minutes, right? Unless you have something else you want to talk about.
Yeah, go ahead.
So a lot of people may or may not watch, professional wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it. But a couple of weeks ago, we had the Money in the Bank. So for those in the wrestling community, there's been a lot of talk about what happened. So a couple of things happened. Liv Morgan won the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. She went on to catch in and beat Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship. They haven't unified those belts. We also had Theory, as he's now called, be inserted in and win the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. A lot of people were very happy with Liv Morgan getting the opportunity to be champion and kind of break through that glass ceiling that's kind of eluded her throughout her career. She's a former member of the Rider Squad, been on the roster for some years. And this is her chance to kind of shine. With the women, they don't have a secondary belt. So they don't have like an Intercontinental Championship or equivalent for women. It's just, you're either the women's champ or you're not, or you're, tag team champ. So kudos to her for that. Happy to see that great moment. But with Theory, a lot of people are upset. He's the youngest guy to ever win. You have this big thing going on with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar's back again. For those that don't watch much, you probably rolling your eyes. I was too when I found out. But what I wanted to point out was the WWE had an opportunity to fix something that they did that was really idiotic, which was combine the WWE and the Universal Championship. So you had the Money in the Bank contract. A lot of people are upset that Austin Theory won because they don't feel like he's done enough to deserve it. I'm one of those people that don't feel like he's done enough, but that doesn't stop WWE from going with whoever they like. It doesn't matter if they should or not. But for me, you had the opportunity to then say, okay, he can go out and win one belt or the other. That way you can break up the Undisputed Championship, get the belts back on both shows. Unless you're going to combine both shows, which it doesn't look like you're doing, you need to have champions on both shows. So that would have been an opportunity for that to happen. And they pass it up by Theory coming out and saying basically he's going to challenge for the Undisputed Championship. And you can always fix that by just rewriting that down the road and him only being able to challenge for one championship or the other, which I think makes the most sense. But what I want to say is WWE is doing the same things over and over. Brock versus Roman Reigns. Got chances to fix things that you probably shouldn't have done and they don't. On the other hand, All Elite Wrestling, they did something really unique in that CM Punk won their championship and got hurt. What they did was they did a tournament to then crown an interim champion that's going to be their champion, which ended up being John Moxley, the former Dean Ambrose, until CM Punk returns. That belt will be, defended. That'll be the belt that'll go on the shows. And then when CM Punk returns, whoever's the champ at that time, they'll reunify those belts. That gives them a chance without stripping the guy that's injured. I wouldn't want to see that happen all the time, but I think it's a great thing in a case like this where a guy just won the belt. You don't have to strip him. They also did something really great on AEW television on Wednesday night. Isaiah Swerve Scott, who you might know from his time on WWE TV, as well as Keith Lee, are their first Black AEW Tag Team Champions. They won the belts on Wednesday night. So kudos to AEW for taking the belts. His name is Swerve Strickland on AEW because, names and things. But kudos to them for giving them the opportunity to be the first Black AEW Tag Team Champions. They like to give those belts to people, let them have a little bit of time, and then move them on to the next set of people so that they're going through champions. But at the same time, you have a level of achievement when you win those belts. So shout out to AEW for making that move. A couple more things I could talk about, but just wanted to highlight some of the things that are going on in the world of wrestling. As we are a sports show, we got a little bit of time to talk about some of the other things that happen for those of us who watch that may be interested.
Yeah, for sure, man. Some really good stuff there. We actually are over on time, but since we got a little bit late start tonight, gave you a little extra tonight because that's that's what we do.
Yes, sir.
All about the people.
Always.
Yeah, we for the people.
Always.
So before we head out, man, just a couple of quick things for you. So number one, if you haven't already, man, please hit that like button because that lets YouTube know that it's the place to be. Also, while you're there, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you haven't already done that as well. Make sure you check out our new sponsor, EV Mux. The link's down in the description. You can get a free account. Check it out for yourself and make your live streams next level professional as well. And finally, just a couple weeks away from our NFL division previews. So about that time, we're going to be going through two divisions each week, one NFC, one AFC. So make sure you tune in. We'll go ahead and get the schedule out for you. That way you'll know exactly which team's going to be coming on. Might even have some special guests for y'all. But we can't talk about that yet because that's part of something else. So we can't even give you all the details yet. But, just know there's big thing coming for the Play Caller Sports Talk.
Yes, sir.
That's how we roll. Big things.
Closing
thoughts, man?
I'm good.
Well, then, sir, with that, I will simply say this to everyone. See y'all next week, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bring some friends.